The sun had barely risen over the quiet suburban neighborhood when I dragged my trash can down the driveway like I had done every week for years. My routine was simple and my expectations modest. Put the bin by the curb, wait for the garbage truck, and roll it back once emptied. Nothing dramatic. But life has a funny way of throwing drama at you even when you least expect it. And for me, that drama came in the form of my next-door neighbor, Karen. Everyone has heard the stories, the memes, and the jokes about Karens. But until you live next to one, you don't truly understand the chaos they can unleash. Karen wasn't just any neighbor. She was the self-proclaimed queen of the homeowners association, though technically her title carried no official power. Still, she carried herself with an iron fist and a nose permanently tilted so high in the air that I was surprised she could see the ground she walked on. Tea started subtly, almost like background noise you notice but dismiss. One morning, I woke up to find my trash can tipped over. Bags ripped slightly, contents spilling onto the grass. I assumed it had been a raccoon or maybe the wind. Annoyed, I cleaned it up, cursed under my breath, and moved on with my day. But the next week it happened again. And the week after that. It was always the same. Trash can knocked over, contents spilling, and me left cleaning up a mess that wasn't supposed to exist in the first place. After the third week, I started noticing patterns. My can was always knocked over, yet the rest of the street's bins stood upright and undisturbed. That gnawed at me because randomness rarely discriminates like that. One morning, I decided to test a theory. I set my alarm for earlier than usual, poured myself some coffee, and sat by the front window with the blinds cracked open just enough to give me a clear line of sight to the driveway. At precisely 6:45 a.m., just before the garbage truck was scheduled, I saw her. Karen. Her perfectly pressed yoga pants clung to her like they had been ironed that morning, and her oversized sunglasses reflected the pale sun. She strutted down the sidewalk with her little yappy dog in tow, glanced left and right as though she were a spy on some secret mission, and then, without hesitation, she kicked the side of my trash can. The sound of the plastic thud echoed faintly, followed by the hollow crash as the can toppled over. Trash bags rolled out onto the lawn like soldiers falling in battle. Karen tugged her dog's leash and strutted away as though nothing had happened. My jaw clenched. My fists tightened. My suspicions were confirmed, and now I had proof in my own mind. I wanted to rush outside and confront her, but something in me told me to wait. Confrontation would only make her deny it. She'd play the victim. Neighbors would take sides. I needed to be smarter. So I cleaned up the mess once again, but this time I began plotting. The following week, I installed a cheap motion sensor camera near the garage with a perfect angle toward the trash can. I didn't care if Karen saw it. In fact, I hoped she would. I wanted her to know she wasn't as invisible as she thought. Sure enough, the next week at the same exact time, Karen struck again. This time I caught her in full HD. She walked up casually, pretended to tie her shoelace right next to my bin, and then gave it a shove that sent it sprawling across the driveway. Her smug little smirk afterward was the cherry on top. I watched the clip back 3 times, my blood boiling hotter each time. Armed with evidence, I debated my next move. Part of me wanted to storm over, laptop in hand, and shove the footage in her face. But then I thought about the long game. If I acted too soon, she'd weasel her way out of it. Karen types always do. No, I wanted something more. Something she wouldn't see coming, so I hatched a plan. First, I went simple. I bought a heavier trash can with reinforced sides. The kind contractors use for hauling construction debris. If Karen tried to knock it over, she'd strain her pampered ankles in the process. The first week I put it out, I watched eagerly from the window. Sure enough, she approached with her same predictable stride. He shoved it once. It didn't budge. She shoved it again, this time with both hands. Nothing. Her face twisted in irritation, her lips pursed, and then she looked around quickly before stomping off. Victory danced in my veins, but it wasn't enough. She didn't stop. The next week, she came armed with her dog's leash, which she looped around the handle and used as leverage to yank the can down. It worked, and once again my garbage spilled onto the street. I realized then that Karen wasn't just annoying, she was determined. For her, this had become a battle of control, a sick little game where she wanted to assert dominance. And if she thought I'd roll over like her poor husband always did, she was sorely mistaken. That's when my plan evolved. I ordered a custom-made trash can online. It looked normal from the outside, standard black with wheels and a lid, but inside it was fitted with a harmless yet humiliating surprise. A spring-loaded glitter bomb. The kind pranksters used on YouTube, the ones that explode harmlessly but coat everything in sight with fine, sparkling glitter that clings for weeks. I rigged it so that when the lid was yanked or kicked too hard, the mechanism would trigger. The morning of the big reveal, I sat by the window again, heart pounding with anticipation. Karen arrived right on schedule, her dog trotting alongside her. She looked around with that same faux innocence, then bent down and yanked the can to boom. The lid flew open, and a cloud of glitter erupted like a firework in her face. Gold, silver, and neon pink specks rained down on her, coating her hair, her clothes, even her dog. She screamed, a shrill, indignant sound that carried across the quiet street. Her dog barked frantically, shaking glitter off its fur. Karen waved her arms, coughing and sputtering, her sunglasses now dripping with shimmering dust. She looked like a deranged disco ball under the morning sun. I nearly fell out of my chair laughing. The neighbors peeked out their windows, drawn by the noise, and a few even chuckled. Karen shrieked, demanding to know who did this, as though the trash can had somehow betrayed her. She stormed back to her house, leaving a sparkling trail of humiliation in her wake. But here's the thing. Karen didn't stop. If anything, the glitter bomb ignited a full-blown war. She filed complaints with the HOA, claiming my trash can was a hazard. She called the city, trying to get me fined for unsightly property. She even left passive-aggressive notes on my mailbox, accusing me of ruining the neighborhood's aesthetic. Each time I countered with evidence, the footage, the notes, the glitter-stained leash she dropped in her own driveway. Slowly the tide began to turn. Neighbors who once rolled their eyes at her antics started siding with me. Karen was no longer the queen bee, she was the neighborhood joke. And yet I wasn't done. Because Karen needed to learn a lesson she wouldn't forget. I won't spoil the ending just yet, but let's just say the final move I made was the one she truly didn't see coming. The morning always started the same in my neighborhood. Birds chirping, sprinklers clicking on, and the soft rumble of garbage trucks making their rounds. I liked the rhythm of it all, the quiet routine that made suburban life peaceful. But peace had its limits. And mine ended the moment I realized I lived next door to Karen. She wasn't just any Karen. She was the kind of person who believed her word was law, even when nobody asked for her opinion. She strutted around the neighborhood like a queen without a crown, always armed with complaints and a clipboard. If a lawn was an inch too high, she noticed. If Christmas lights stayed up one day past New Year's, she took a picture and emailed the HOA IT first. I kept my head down and ignored her. Life's too short to let people like that crawl under your skin. But then it started, the trash can saga. The first time it happened, I chalked it up to bad luck. I'd put my trash can out by the curb like always, and when I came back later, it was tipped over. Garbage spilled, bags torn open, coffee grounds and leftovers littering the grass. I sighed, muttered about raccoons or maybe a stray dog and cleaned it up. But the second week it happened again. And the third. By then, I realized this wasn't random, especially because every other bin on the street stood perfectly upright. The fourth week I decided to watch. I made coffee extra early, pulled a chair up to my front window and waited. At 6:45 a.m. like clockwork, there she was. Karen in her spotless yoga pants and oversized sunglasses, dragging along her tiny barking dog like it was royalty. She slowed near my driveway, glanced around to make sure no one was watching, and then, kick. My trash can toppled over like a casualty of war, bags rolling into the street. And just like that, she strutted off as if nothing happened. I gripped my mug so tight I thought it might shatter. The audacity of it stunned me. Why? What satisfaction could she possibly get from doing this? Still, I didn't rush outside. People like her thrive on confrontation. They twist it, manipulate it, and somehow end up the victim. I wasn't about to give her that. Instead, I planned. First step, proof. I bought a motion-activated security camera and mounted it near my garage with a perfect angle toward the curb. A week later, the footage confirmed everything. Karen, crouching like she was tying her shoelace, then shoving my trash can hard enough to send it sprawling. And oh, the smirk she gave afterward. I saved the video, but I didn't confront her yet. I wanted her to think she was winning. Step 2: Fight back. I replaced my old lightweight trash can with a contractor-grade beast built to handle bricks if necessary. It weighed twice as much, and even empty, it took effort to move. When trash day came, I put it out proudly, knowing Karen's usual kick wouldn't make a dent. Sure enough, she came marching down the street, gave it a shove, and nothing. She shoved again. Still nothing. Her smug face twisted into frustration, and she stormed off. I couldn't help laughing quietly behind the blinds. But Karen wasn't one to give up. The following week she came prepared. This time she looped her dog's leash through the handle and yanked. With enough effort, she finally toppled it, garbage spilling once again. She even looked around with this triumphant little grin, like she'd just won a medal. That's when I knew. This wasn't about trash. It was about control. About her needing to prove she could do whatever she wanted. And if she thought I'd roll over like her poor husband always did when she barked orders, she was dead wrong that night. I got to work on step 3, humiliation. I ordered a glitter bomb kit online, the kind pranksters use on porch pirates. Safe, harmless, but devastating to pride. I rigged it inside the lid of my trash can with a simple trigger mechanism. If someone yanked it too hard or kicked it at the right angle, boom. Instant explosion of glitter. The next trash day I was practically buzzing with anticipation. Coffee in hand, camera rolling, I watched. Karen approached, same routine. She bent down, tugged at the can. Boom. The lid popped, and a fountain of glitter burst into the air, raining gold, pink, and silver sparkles all over her. Her hair, her expensive athleisure outfit, even her poor dog, all coated in shimmering dust that would cling for weeks. Karen shrieked like she'd been set on fire, waving her arms and sputtering. Her dog barked frantically, shaking glitter everywhere. Neighbors peeked through their blinds, and one even laughed audibly. I was doubled over inside my house, trying not to choke on my coffee. It was beautiful. Karen, the untouchable queen of HOA complaints, looked like a human disco ball. She stomped back to her house, leaving a sparkling trail across the pavement. For days, she couldn't hide it. Glitter is the herpes of the craft world. It never goes away. Every time she stepped outside, a little sparkle caught the sun. She must have vacuumed her car 10 times, but even weeks later, flecks of pink shimmered on her seats. People noticed. And for the first time, the neighborhood wasn't laughing with Karen. They were laughing at her. But humiliation only fueled her fire. She marched over to my house one evening, waving a printed complaint in her hand. "Your trash can is a hazard," she snapped. "You'll be hearing from the HOA." I leaned against the doorframe, calm as ever. "Funny, I've got security footage showing you vandalizing my property. Should I share it with the HOA too?" Her face drained of color. She sputtered, muttered something about misunderstanding, then stormed off. But she wasn't done. She doubled down, filing complaint after complaint. She said my trash can was too close to the sidewalk, that it didn't match the neighborhood aesthetic, that I left it out too long after pickup. Each time, I replied with evidence of her harassment. Slowly the tide turned. Other neighbors started whispering about her antics. They'd had their own run-ins. Nasty notes, petty fines, endless nagging. With the videos and glitter incidents spreading like wildfire, Karen's reputation cracked. Still, I wasn't satisfied. People like Karen never learn until they're forced to. That's when I set up my final move. I invested in a high-tech smart trash can. The kind designed for bears in mountain towns. Reinforced steel, auto-locking lid, impossible to tip. But I modified it further. I added a small speaker inside connected to a motion sensor. So when someone tampered with it, a loud voice boomed out. "Step away from the trash can. Authorities have been notified." The first time Karen tried again, the reaction was priceless. She tugged at the handle, and suddenly the deep robotic voice echoed across the street. She screamed, stumbled backward, nearly tripped over her dog and sprinted home. "Treat." She screamed, stumbled backward, nearly tripped over her dog, and sprinted home without looking back. The entire thing was caught on camera, and when I showed a few neighbors, the laughter nearly shook the walls. That was the moment the war ended. Karen stopped touching my trash can. She stopped leaving notes. She stopped pretending to run the HOA. Her glitter-covered reputation had already destroyed her authority, and now she lived quietly behind her curtains, avoiding the eyes of those who used to bow to her demands. As for me, I finally had peace again. Trash day went back to being boring, and boring had never felt so good. Suburban mornings had always been my favorite. The sun would rise softly over the rooftops, sprinklers clicked on across manicured lawns, and the faint hum of garbage trucks echoed in the distance. Life in the neighborhood should have been peaceful, predictable, and dull in the best way. But dull wasn't on the menu when you lived next to Karen. She was the kind of neighbor who wore oversized sunglasses at sunrise, carried her tiny yappy dog like it was royalty, and treated every sidewalk crack like it was under her personal authority. She had no official position in the homeowners association, but if you asked her, she practically ran the place. First, I tried to stay out of her way. She was loud, she was nosy, and she had an endless supply of complaints. If someone's grass grew half an inch too long, she noticed. If someone left their Christmas lights up a day past January 1st, she wrote a note. Annoying, yes. Dangerous, no. That's what I thought, until the trash can situation started. The first time I came outside to find my trash can tipped over, I sighed. Garbage spilled across the lawn, bags ripped, coffee grounds and food scraps scattered everywhere. I muttered about raccoons or maybe a stray dog. Not a big deal. But then it happened the following week. And again. By the third week it was suspicious. Every other bin on the street was upright and untouched. Only mine was lying on its side, guts spilled for the world to see. The fourth week, I decided to catch the culprit. I woke early, coffee in hand, and stationed myself by the front window. At 6:45 a.m., just before the garbage truck arrived, I saw her. Karen. She strutted down the sidewalk in her spotless yoga pants, sunglasses reflecting the rising sun, her tiny dog pulling at the leash. She glanced around, pretending to be casual, and then, kick. She slammed her foot against the side of my trash can, tipping it over with a hollow crash that echoed down the street. She didn't even look guilty. She just walked off, smirking like she'd accomplished something. My blood boiled. But I didn't fling the door open or run after her. People like Karen thrive on confrontation. They twist it around, play the victim, and somehow turn you into the villain. No, I needed a better plan. Step 1: proof. I bought a motion-activated security camera and set it up with a perfect view of the curb. Sure enough, the next week she struck again. This time the camera caught everything. Karen crouching like she was tying her shoelace, giving the can a shove and smirking as it toppled. It was crystal clear. Step 2: resistance. I replaced my flimsy plastic bin with a contractor-grade beast. Heavy, reinforced, practically unmovable. That week I set it out and waited. When Karen arrived, she shoved it once, twice, nothing. Her frustration was delicious. But she wasn't done. The following week, she looped her dog's leash through the handle and yanked until she finally toppled it. She actually looked proud of herself. That's when I knew. This wasn't random pettiness. This was war. I spent hours online looking for inspiration, and that's when I stumbled across the perfect idea. A glitter bomb. Harmless but humiliating. I ordered a kit and rigged it inside the trash can lid. If anyone yanked it open or kicked too hard, boom. A spray of glitter would cover them from head to toe. The morning of the test, I was buzzing with anticipation. Sure enough, Karen arrived on schedule, her dog trotting beside her. She crouched, tugged at the can, and, boom! A fountain of glitter exploded in her face. Gold, silver, neon pink. All over her hair, her expensive outfit, even her poor dog. She shrieked like she'd been set on fire, stumbling backward, coughing, waving her arms. The dog barked wildly, shaking glitter everywhere. The sound of her outrage echoed down the quiet street. I nearly fell out of my chair laughing. Neighbors peeked out their windows, some even chuckling openly. Karen stormed home, leaving a sparkling trail behind her. 4 days afterward, glitter clung to her clothes, her hair, even her car. Glitter is impossible to clean completely. It was her permanent badge of humiliation. But humiliation only made her angrier. She filed a complaint with the HOA, claiming my trash can was a safety hazard. She marched to my door waving papers, demanding I comply with neighborhood standards. I simply smiled and asked if she'd like me to show the HOA my video evidence of her vandalizing my property. She sputtered, turned red, and stormed away. That should have been enough, but Karen wasn't done. She tried every trick. Petty complaints, calling the city, leaving notes. But I stayed one step ahead. Finally, I brought out my trump card. A high-tech bear-proof trash can, reinforced with steel and fitted with a motion-activated speaker. I modified it so that if anyone tampered with it, a deep robotic voice would boom. "Step away from the trash bin. Authorities have been notified." The first time Karen tried again, the effect was priceless. She tugged at the handle and froze when the voice echoed. Her sunglasses slipped down her nose, her jaw dropped, and she screamed before sprinting away, dog dragging behind her. I caught the whole thing on camera, and when I showed it to a few neighbors, the laughter spread like wildfire. That was the end. Karen never touched my trash can again. She stopped leaving notes, stopped pretending to control the neighborhood, and avoided eye contact whenever she left her house. Her reputation was shattered, her authority gone. And me. I finally got my peace back. Trash day returned to being boring, and boring had never felt so sweet. I filed copies of the fake letter. If Karen wanted to play the long game, I was more than ready. That a week later the police showed up. 2 officers knocked on my door, polite but cautious, saying they'd received a noise complaint about excessive partying. My jaw nearly hit the floor. Partying. I was the least social person on the block. My Friday nights consisted of Netflix, leftovers, and maybe a glass of wine if I was feeling wild. The officers quickly realized the complaint was bogus, but it was still an inconvenience, not to mention embarrassing to have squad cars parked outside my house. Guess who was standing on the sidewalk, watching the whole thing unfold with a smug little smile? Karen. She waved at me like we were old friends, her eyes gleaming with triumph. I wanted to yell to call her out right then and there, but I held back. Losing my temper would only give her fuel. Instead, I invited the officers in, showed them the doorbell camera footage from the past few nights. Peaceful, quiet, and completely devoid of any parties. I even pulled up the fake HOA letter for good measure. The officers exchanged a look, nodded, and assured me they'd make a note in their system. If Karen tried again, it wouldn't hold water. But Karen wasn't done. Over the next month, she tried everything. She reported my car for being parked too close to the curb. She claimed I was leaving my trash cans out for days after pickup. The footage proved otherwise. She even told another neighbor that I was endangering children by leaving tools on my porch, which was nothing more than a broom propped against the railing after sweeping. Each attempt was more ridiculous than the last, and each one backfired as I added to my growing mountain of evidence. Still, the constant harassment wore on me. Every time I saw her walking down the street, clipboard in hand, my stomach knotted. She was like a storm cloud hovering over an otherwise sunny neighborhood. It wasn't just me either. Other neighbors had their stories. She'd yelled at a young couple for planting unauthorized flowers in their yard. She'd scolded an elderly man for leaving his recycling bin out an extra half hour. Everyone hated her antics, but most were too tired or too polite to fight back. That's when I realized I wasn't just dealing with Karen anymore. I had the chance to stand up not just for myself but for the whole block. If I could outweed her publicly, the way I had with a trash can, maybe others would find the courage to push back too. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. The HOA scheduled their annual summer block party, a rare event where everyone came together for barbecue, games, and a little bit of community spirit. Karen, of course, saw it as her stage. She showed up early, clipboard in hand, ready to nitpick everything from the decorations to the way the hot dogs were grilled. I came prepared. In my pocket was a USB drive loaded with video clips, photos, and digital copies of every fake complaint and false report she'd filed against me. I wasn't planning to humiliate her just for the fun of it, though I'll admit the thought made me grin, but to finally expose her pattern in front of everyone she claimed to represent. Sure enough, midway through the party, Karen found her opening. She marched up to the microphone, interrupting the DJ, and announced that certain residents were destroying the integrity of the neighborhood. Cans, porch lights, and how people like me were lowering property values. That was my cue. I stepped forward, calm and collected, and asked if I could respond. The HOA president, clearly tired of Karen's theatrics, handed me the microphone. I plugged in my USB drive, and within seconds, the projector screen lit up with clips of Karen herself, knocking over my trash can, slipping the fake violation notice onto my door, smirking while the police arrived. Gasps filled the air. Few people laughed outright. Karen's face went pale, then red, then pale again. I didn't have to say much. The footage spoke for itself. I simply added, "I think it's time we stop letting one person bully the rest of us." The applause that followed was louder than the DJ's speakers. Neighbors who had stayed quiet for years finally spoke up. One by one, they shared their stories of Karen's harassment, each more ridiculous than the last. It was like a floodgate had opened. By the end of the night, the HOA president had announced a formal vote to remove Karen from her self-appointed rule enforcement role. She wasn't president, she wasn't even on the board. She had just been loud enough to convince people she held authority. Watching her storm off that night, sputtering about conspiracies and ungrateful neighbors, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: peace. Not just for me but for everyone on the block. The weight of her constant surveillance lifted, and the neighborhood felt lighter, freer, almost alive again. Of course, I knew Karen wouldn't disappear overnight. People like her rarely do. But with the community united, her power was gone. She could mutter, complain, and scribble notes on her clipboard all she wanted, but nobody was listening anymore. And that, more than any sprinkler system or motion alarm, was the sweetest revenge of all. For a while, life in the neighborhood felt almost normal again. After the summer block party where Karen was exposed, there was a noticeable shift in the air. People smiled more. Neighbors waved without that nervous glance over their shoulder, wondering if Karen was lurking nearby. Even the HOA seemed more relaxed, relieved to have someone finally stand up to her. But if there was one thing I had learned about Karen, it was that she never gave up quietly. Her silence in the weeks that followed wasn't peace. It was plotting. And sure enough, she made her next move in the most dramatic way possible. With a letter from her lawyer, I came home one afternoon to find a thick envelope taped to my door. The return address bore the name of a local law office. Inside, I found a letter claiming that I had willfully endangered Karen by installing a booby-trapped trash receptacle. According to the letter, she was seeking damages for emotional distress, public humiliation, and potential injury. I nearly laughed out